Okay. A bit. There we go. Okie dokie, good to see you all again on this last week of January. Two things. Remember that we have a quiz this week at the end of the week, so just be aware of that. I'll be working on that, so you'll have that this week. And yes, note this change to the syllabus. I added a reading that, I just added a reading. And I had to make a correction to another reading because the Book of Wisdom reading, fine. If you didn't read it, then you might want to take a look at it. We'll take a look at it today, but if you want to look it over yourself. And then the reading from the Catechism of the Catholic Church should have been only 2 paragraphs, 2566, 2567. I believe I had it down as 2566 to 2667, yes? So I know a couple people responded to my email. Got your emails. Miss Francis. Oh, no, not Miss Francis. Miss Francis not in this class? Huh, it's the wrong class. Huh, weird. I hope I didn't send the email to the wrong class. Bamo, Mr. Cruz. By the way, Mr. Cruz, congratulations on your good performance at the track meet. Thank you for representing us. But anyways, so I made a mistake on that. It should have only been 2 paragraphs, not 100 paragraphs. So if you read I'm going to give everyone an extra 2 an extra 2 points on your final grade for that, because that was my mistake. And if you did read the 100 paragraphs, most of the paragraphs are about prayer. If anyone did it, did anyone do it? That's the lucky thing. Most people don't do the reading, so you weren't harmed by it. But did anyone actually do the reading from the Catechism for today? And read those 100 paragraphs? No. But nevertheless, you could have, and that's my mistake. So I'll add 2 extra credit points to everyone's grade at the final grade. So if you get like an 80 in the course, you'll get an 82. I'll add 2 extra credit points, because that's my mistake. All right, but just note the change. I should have been more diligent when I was correcting the syllabus, but, I always miss something. Hopefully it's not something major, and it's all good. I mean, it's the Catechism, but I wouldn't want to read 100 paragraphs if I didn't have to. All right, where are we here? Yes, sources of authority. I think that's all I wanted to say. Sources of authority. Talked about reason and faith. Talked about the intellect, the will, and choice. Okay, being responsible beings. So we choose to believe. Okay, we actively choose. At least that's the Catholic belief. Not all Christians actually, we have the ability to think and to choose. It's on the PowerPoint. We'll come to the Catechism in a second. Not all Christians think that, of course. This is more a Catholic viewpoint, and also Eastern Orthodox Christianity, Oriental Orthodox Christianity, and I'd say a lot of Protestant Christians, Reformed Christians, but not all of them. Those who belong to what's called the Calvinist tradition, which is based on the theology of a man named John Calvin, like Presbyterians, a lot of Baptist churches, Pentecostal churches, and stuff like that, Assemblies of God. No, you don't really make a choice. God's grace is irresistible. Okay? You are predetermined or predestined by God to either be saved or be damned. In the idea of John Calvin, you call it double predestination. God already has decided which of us in this room are going to be saved and go to heaven, and which of us are going to go to hell and be damned. And there's nothing you can do to change it. It's God's will. It's predestination. An indication that you're probably on the way to heaven is if you become a Christian, and specifically a Calvinist Christian, not a Catholic. I know I'm on the Hell Express with Miss Womelsdorf. I punched my ticket a long time ago, and it was considerably cheaper than Greyhound.
Thank you.
So this is a debatable point for some Christians, not all Christians. But I'm privileged, since we're in a Catholic context, I'm privileging the Catholic idea here, which is that we are free creatures and we've been given this ability to think and choose, which as I tried to kind of, I'm not going to gild the lily, but we talked about in the last class, I was trying to make the point of, because people have this conception of religion is about control, and it's not authority, but it's an authoritarian structure trying to tell you what to do. And so, well, that's true. There are a lot of things that tell you what to do. I mean, in my exercise class last night, the lady who's leading is like, get your shit off your chest. Okay. Yeah. Now get into a plank. Why am I doing these things? They all cause me pain in some way. But I'm listening to this woman. And she's a good woman. I trust her. She's my teacher. But she's controlling me and causing me discomfort and pain. But when a priest says, well, maybe, Bob, you shouldn't really do that, and maybe you should reflect. Don't tell me what to do. I've got a conscience. I'll decide what I want to do. But people have that conception. Religion's just about controlling people. Okay, and God is. And the idea of God is a control, all right? It's a way to control people in society, to fool them, make them do what you need them to do, which is kind of true. Some people can use religion that way. But it's really kind of what kind of wise God or clever God would take some primate from the jungle, Some monkey is just like hanging from the tree, eating his bananas, and God's like, whammo! You have reason now. And whammo! You have freedom of choice. Why would a God who wanted to control people do that? What would be the point of that? To make you think, to want you to think. And to want you to make the choices about what you think about. You can decide to not do what this God tells you to do or you should do. So human beings are responsible beings. We're reasonable, we think, but we also can choose. And I'm responsible for choosing correctly. That is a serious obligation on my part. It is a serious obligation. That's why I have to think about what I'm going to do. But these abilities of thought and choice, well, why would God give them to us? Because God didn't want, I would assume, that you can't, God bless you, you can't have a relationship with a slave, really. I mean, if a person is just your servant or your slave, your robot or your puppet, it's just a purely control relationship. I tell you what to do and you do it now. Because I'm God and I want it done now. Snap to it, human. How do you have a true relationship like that? But God wants to have a relationship. And so we need these abilities. We have these abilities of thought and choice to allow us to seek God, to search for him, and most importantly, to have a relationship with him, which means acceptance, choosing him, choosing what he tells me to believe, in faith. So reason and faith, but reason confers a capacity, an ability on me to desire God. And this desire expresses itself in the world's religions. I know none of you is taking world religions with me, which comes after this class, but I kind of go over this a little bit. How does the Catholic Church look at other world's religions? Because they can't all be true. I mean, Jesus is the truth. He's the truth. He's the definitive truth, yes? But other world religions show this capacity we have in this desire for God that all humans have, not just people who are Christian or Jewish, but all people. And so we come to know things through our rational experience of just human life and the world, the physical world, which also constitute sources of authority for us. the laws of physics. I mean, the world works the way it works. You pretty much can't change that. You can't make light go faster than light. The speed of light seems to be the speed limit of the universe, unless we find something faster. But we can't make light go faster than light. It seems to be a law of the universe that we have to observe, that we cannot break. We can try to bend it, but we can't break it. What did I just see on the on television? No, it was on the internet. What did I see? It was the sound waves. Does that have anything to do with this? Can I use it? No, probably not. It was a cool thing, but forget it. Forget it, I'm just talking to myself. Who would like to read this from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 33? This was not, I believe, part of your readings, but I thought it was apropos, Ms. I know it's Anastasia, right? So I got the first name, and it's a P for the last name. I know it's not Plunkett, because I think I got you in ahead. Not Poland. Anastasia. Not Plunkett, but it has to be something above an L, before an L. Pat. There we go. Pat. Okay, Miss Patton. But anyway, would anyone like to read this from the Catechism? Go ahead, Ms. Donnelly. Thank you.
His freedom, voice of his conscience, with his law, secret infinite. Man questions himself without cause. In all this, he discerns spiritual soul, seed of eternity we bear in ourselves, irreducible to the very material, and have its origin.
Excellent. Okay, so the Catechism, the Catholic Church, abbreviated CCC, paragraph 33. This last bit is a quotation where it's from, but I'm curious to see where it's from. Quoting from here. Open. Oh, Gaudium et Spes. Okay, so it's from Vatican II. We'll talk about Vatican II later, not later, something. Okay, so this is, I think it's a brief statement, but an important statement. The human being, okay, we are open to truth and beauty. We want to know how the world really is. Okay? I think most people would agree with that. Right? You don't have to be religious to agree with that. Just, even people who, follow the science, or put their faith in the scientific method. They're trying to, even if they believe they're materialists and they believe that there is no supernatural, that just the world exists, no God or anything. But they want to know how the world really is. Why do that if you're not looking for truth of some kind? How the world really is, how reality is. Okay? But also beauty. God bless you. I would say that we all want beauty, but then there are people who like country music. Yeah. And I grew up in the country, so I was always into rock and roll, never into country rock. Anyways, but beauty, we like things that are beautiful, that look right, look like they're supposed to, I guess you could say, if you want to find beauty. All right, look like something is supposed to. But then people have different definitions of beauty, because you could look at an old painting from 200 years ago of, say, a woman or something, and it looks like a woman and something like that, or looks like a human being, I should say. Then you see like a Picasso painting. Picasso lived in like the 1940s or something, maybe the 1920s. And the person or the lady or whatever it is has like an arm going this way and an arm going that way, and the head is all cockeyed, and it looks all, the eyes are like up here and over there, and it's more, I forget what they call Picasso style or anything, but anyways, maybe surrealist or something. It's more like they were trying to imitate a dreamlike state where things are not really like they are. They're kind of weird in a dream. concepts and things are just kind of thrown together haphazardly. So yeah, it doesn't. And some people would say his paintings are beautiful. Or Jackson Pollock, who would just, like splatter paint and stuff like that all over a canvas and put it on the ground and just take his brush and go, all right, I'm not seeing some of them. I like the colors in some of them. Not sure I think they're beautiful, but some of the colors are nice. So I guess the colors are beautiful, but I'm looking for something, I'm looking for something that is pleasing, pleasurable. So we seek beauty, we seek truth. We seek goodness, moral goodness in some way. Hopefully a person who does good things. Go to get your car fixed, you want to go to the right mechanic, yes? Not someone who, you want someone who's morally good, who's going to fix the car and fix what needs to be fixed and charge you a fair price for the work and parts. Not someone who's going to break stuff, so that you have to come back later. Or overcharge you, say, the book value, it says I only really worked 1 hour, but I'll say on the book value I worked 2 hours, which I really didn't do. But, the person most people are not going to say, oh, that's great. I don't mind overpaying you or paying you for things you didn't do. No, we seek moral goodness. We could also say competence. People who are at least competent. Forget about moral goodness, right and wrong. But we do see competence, the people that should act the way they say they're going to act. If I am constantly doing things against the syllabus, like, okay, this is the grade scheme for the syllabus, but then, I go to grade you and it's something completely different. Well, I changed it, or then I didn't tell you, or I did other things and I just didn't tell you. That's not good. That's not competent. The things I'm doing morally, they could be also evil if I'm doing it to harm you, if my intention is to cause harm. But if I'm just, I'm just doing it because I'm stupid, I just don't think, then I'm incompetent. We want moral goodness, okay? We don't want evil. Evil's a defect. Evil is the removal of some benefit or some good. We want things to be better, not worse, hopefully, okay? Freedom in conscience. Okay, we want to be able to make our own decisions and not always have to be told what we should do. To be able, conscience comes back to scientia, knowledge, the word knowledge, so that we have a knowledge of what morally we should do, which implies that we have to think about it, which is hard. Even though it's not, the brain isn't technically a muscle, it hurts to think, just like it hurts to go to the gym. And you can see this when I try to get people to think. You can see how it physically affects people. It's like, people make faces. Their muscles tighten up because I have to think about this. It should be simple. No, it's not simple. Okay, it's like lifting weights at the gym. And it can become habitual. It can become a habit, but you have to exercise that habit. But we have apparently that freedom. We seek that freedom, even if we don't believe in it. I mean, even we talked about this in the last class, like there's a guy named Sam Harris who's an atheist provocateur. He does a lot of debates and discussions with people online. You can find him on YouTube if you want various debates he's had. He's a neuroscientist. He actually used to be a follower of the Dalai Lama for a period of time. So I guess he was following Buddhism or a form of Buddhism for a while. But then he went and studied neuroscience, the brain and all that. And, he said outright, we're neurochemical puppets. It's the brain, and that is total materialist. It's the brain and our genes and our DNA, and that's it. The idea that we are a person making decisions is really an illusion. Okay. On the other hand, I'm sure Sam Harris, when he gets up in the morning, is like, do I want to go to Starbucks? Yeah, I'll go to Starbucks. Oh, when I get to Starbucks, do I want to have an almond croissant or do I want to have a bear claw? I'm in the mood I like almonds. I'll have an almond croissant. Well, I like almonds, so Sam Harris likes almonds. even though he's a neurochemical puppet, it's just the chemicals in his brains that make him. Probably, if you ask him, yes, I like almond better because that's what my brain is telling me, or my genes are telling me, or whatever. And I want coffee. Some people like coffee, some people don't. That's because of my brain and the chemicals in my brain and how it. Okay, if you asked him, he probably would give you his standard line of what he believes, but I'm sure he's acting as if he's free. He would hope that he's free. If Sam Harris, this guy came into my Starbucks and I said, okay, I'm not going to sell you any bear claws. I'm not going to sell, you only get almond croissants. Why? Well, because that's what your brain is programmed to like. And we know that. And so you shouldn't like anything else. That's what you get. Well, wait a second. Maybe I want a bear claw. Sorry, Sam, you don't have any freedom. Remember, you're a puppet. Your brain craves almond. We long for the infinite and for happiness. We don't want things to be over. Okay? Even if you're an atheist and you believe you're just like a radio and you shut off when you die, or you're like your cell phone, death is just, you press the off button and the cell phone powers off. And that's what happens with the human body. No soul going to heaven or hell or anything like that. But even if you don't believe in any of that, you're an atheist or an agnostic, you still have that longing for things. You still want to know, people. Maybe you watch science fiction movies about what it's going to be like 500 or 1,000 years. Or maybe you're watching Star Trek or the Star Wars movies, from which I understand the Star Wars movies have gotten progressively worse, but whatever, But why do people, you want to fantasize about other galaxies far, far away, or what's going to happen about 1,000 years from now? You're not going to be around. So who cares? So why are you fantasizing over it? The infinite. We like to think that we're going to go on forever. Like we know what's going to happen, but we don't know. We're here now, and something could happen later today, next week, whatever, and you're not here. The radio turns off. God forbid. I hope the radio is turned off for me before any of you. God forbid. But it will happen to all of us and each of us, yes? You're not going to go on forever. You're not going to make it out of this century. I certainly am not. I was born in 1972. But a lot of you, 2006, 2005, maybe? 2000? So, maybe maybe you will. Maybe if you push 100, maybe if the medical technology gets to a point where you can live comfortably to over 100. All right, maybe. So now I have to do my math. See, that's why I don't do curves in the class, Ms. Cobb. What would that be? You're born in 2005, 100 years, 2105? No. Oh, man. Thank God I got to stick to theology, where 1 is 3 and 3 is 1. That makes sense to me. Okay? So maybe you'll make it into the next century. I certainly won't. I don't think so. But you probably will. But, if we look at the statistics, most of us in this room probably won't. Making it to 90 or 100 years old is still not the norm, okay? Around 60s to 70s statistically seems to be the norm, at least in our country, for when people go away. They pass away, someone, I told my mom, I'm going to start, people, when people say, well, she passed. Whenever I hear that from now, I'm going to say, what'd she pass? She passed a kidney stone? She passed a store? She passed away. I don't know what person passed to, or maybe passed over to something. Okay. So the infinite, we still want to think that we'll be around for a long, long time, even if not forever, but we're not going to be. But we have still, why do we desire that? Even if we know it's not true. We know it's not true. You can drive by several cemeteries on the way here. I do. They tell me it's not true, but I still want to hope that I'm going to keep on going for a while. Maybe, maybe not. Happiness. We want to be happy. We do all sorts of things to give us happiness. Pleasure, we can see it as pleasure or fulfillment. Another word for happy is simply being fulfilled. Forget what the word in Anglo-Saxon, I think it comes from luck, being lucky. But anyways, I have to look that up. I just have this little memory of that from the etymology. But think of it in the sense of fulfillment, all right? That's what gives us happiness. And so fulfillment can be different things. We can find fulfillment in different ways. But we want it. Okay, why do we want it? Is a question. And what is it? What is fulfillment for us? It could be different for each of us. But why? Again, is the desire there, this longing, all right? In these questions of truth, beauty, freedom, the infinite, living forever, happiness, being completely happy, because we know we're not always completely happy, like now. Right, Mr. Root? Right there with you, Mr. Root. I got you. Hey. A question is being asked. Even if we don't realize it, we're already kind of talking about God. We're looking for something beyond anything. I think they're just like they're leading people around the tours and stuff. Okay. All right, so I got to put on a good show, Mr. Martin. Anyways, but you're already kind of broaching that subject of you can call it God, you can call it something else, but there's something that I can't just find amongst my fellow human beings. I can't just find in the world. I'm looking for something else. Why? Why would I be? So it already kind of opens the door of God or something beyond that. Something where I'll find my answers to truth and beauty and stuff like that. Even if you don't believe in God, that's probably why you don't believe in God, because it's untrue. You don't want to believe in a lie. You might wish it were true, but wishes are wishes. So still that nagging thing, but why do you care if it's true or not, or if it's just a story and makes you happy? Why should that matter in the universe? In all of this, we're discerning our spiritual soul, that we have something beyond our body, something that connects us to God, or connects us to some other, or this is the location, because it doesn't come from our materialness, all right? Although it is related to our materialness. I mean, when my material body stops working, then this thing called a soul can't function anymore, okay? From the Catholic point of view or the Christian point of view, the soul and the body go together. They function together, all right? So there's not a dualism like it's like the body is actually a good thing for my soul. They participate and cooperate with each other. Once the body is broken and I die or something like that, or maybe I get mentally disabled, that can affect what my soul can do. It doesn't affect my soul. It doesn't destroy or harm my soul. But, if someone who is, gets a head injury and I can't reason anymore, or, I can't function, I still have a soul. Soul's still there. It's fine. But the body, the machine doesn't work. They can't properly, it's like you've got the wrong hardware with the wrong software. Your drivers are bad, Mr. Cruz. And you need to go online and download some new drivers. Or you need to get a new motherboard if that crashes. For some people, you can do that. That's why we have medical science. For some people, the damage is just too great and you have to wait until the next life, where the divine physician can repair what's wrong and restore the broken body with the soul. Okay? But there's something there. I think we all kind of know that leaves when a person dies. We also kind of recognize that. We might not know what it is, but something's different when you have a dead body and a living body. Otherwise, how do you recognize it? What's the difference? Okay. This comes from God. This is the source of life, the soul, that comes from somewhere else. It doesn't come from matter. It's not, the soul isn't material. Okay, it doesn't, you could consider it, you could think of it like matter and energy, two sides of the same coin in the universe. Even in the universe, physical universe, you have matter and you have energy. Okay, matter converts into energy or power, you could say. Energy can solidify, I guess, in a manner of speaking, into matter. Maybe we could use that language in a similar sense with the body and the soul. But our soul exists in our physicality. We're a unity of body and soul. And so our body experiences things, and our soul also experiences things in different ways. The soul experiences the presence of God, this yearning for something more than the material, even though we recognize that we are material, we are physical. But our materiality, you could say, also experiences what's outside of it. We see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch. Okay, we have sensory perception to sense the world outside of us. Experience. Okay, from the Latin experior, means to put to the test, to prove something, to try. Okay? I have this cup here. Someone could tell me that there's coffee in it. Say, okay. But experientially, I don't know that there's coffee in it necessarily if it's not my cup. And so, well, just taste it. Ah, okay, I use one of my sensory perceptions, Mr. Scott. Scott? Okay. Okay, yeah, it tastes like what I remember, my brain remembers coffee tastes like. I've got other sense perceptions. My taste sends signals up to my brain, and my brain's like, oh, that's coffee. It's got that sense memory of what it is. If it doesn't taste like that, then, okay, it's something else. It's orange juice or something, or it's just water, okay? But experience, I gained knowledge derived from direct observation or participation in something, in some event or activity. In that case, I directly participated. I took it. But it could also be observation. I have experience, okay? I have experience of seeing the sun move through the sky. Now, that's interesting, because I have that experience, Ms. Wamelsdorf, yes? But that has to be interpreted, doesn't it?
Well, I was nodding my head. I wasn't sure whether you could see it.
I can see it. Still living?
Yeah.
Or you could have Coach Harbison. People think they're corpses. You're alive, but you don't feel like you are. The human mind. I could say, I have a little joke, but I'm not going to say. What did I say? Experience. Sometimes experience is clear. You know, it seems clear that it's coffee because I tasted it. I have that sense memory. If I wanted to test it further, I could give it to you from somebody else. Here, taste this. This milk tastes off. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit sour. Okay, so now we have two people. So we're upping the ante in a way. We're getting more proof, more data here that maybe this little milk is bad, or that this is really coffee or something. In the case of the sun, you need interpretation. I see it moving, but is it really moving? That's my direct observation. I mean, I can't participate in the sun because it's far away from me. But I have direct observation of its movement. I see it move in one position at one time, and then it's another position at another time, in different places on the earth, you know? I mean, here it's up in the sky, but it went to the top of the earth, like the North Pole or the Arctic, Antarctica. You know, the sun is on the horizon. It just goes around the horizon. It never goes up and it's always around the horizon. Just because of the way the planet is hanging. Why is that? You know, it's in totally different places, you know? Could it be moving? Is it stationary? Don't know. I just have my experience. So sometimes experience has to be interpreted. Experience can also be maybe untruthful or kind of truthful. I know that the sun is there. That's true. It seems to be moving. God bless you. What you could say is not really true. It appears to be moving. So do we just give up on science then because we can't know? You know, our experience can fool us and we're totally wrong about certain things? Just stop looking for answers, stop asking questions, wondering. Experience, put to the test. So experience is not an infallible guide. It's not without error. It's not necessarily wrong either. Okay, kind of look at it as like the cup half full rather than half empty. Okay, it's telling me something about the sun. The sun exists, seems to be moving through the sky. Okay, from my perspective, you know. In the same way, when we talk about God, stop picking on the atheists, and I'll pick on the agnostics. You know, because you get some people who are, they want to leave the door open. Maybe I don't know if they're like hedging their bets, like they want to be at least. You get up to the pearly gates of St. Peter, and you're like, "Are you an atheist?" Yes, go away. But at least if you say like I'm an agnostic, it's like, okay, I left the door open, St. Peter. Maybe there was a God, but you can't know. God is unknowable, so how can you know that there's a God or not? Well, in the same way that when I look at the sun, how can I know that how could 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, okay, even 300 years ago, before they were developing telescopes, how could I have known that the sun wasn't actually moving? Okay, mainly they figured it out through mathematics, because telescopes are not going to really tell you much, because the telescope is going to still show the sun moving, through the sky. You're aiming the telescope at the sun moving through the sky, or moving in relation to our planet, seemingly. But it was through mathematics and the thoughts of physics, and they figured it out. They pretty much assumed, okay. So you can have some sort of knowledge in the same way, but maybe not 100% knowledge. So should you stop believing in the sun? That maybe it's not really there, or maybe it's not moving at all, or not, I shouldn't say moving at all, it kind of undercuts my argument. But, we do that with physical things all the time. We make assumptions even though we can't know all the information. It's the same way with God. We experience reality. Now, if it comes from a God, ultimately, that reality can hint at, or whisper, you might say, about that being. It's God's world. Does the physical world, what does it tell me about its origins? Is it eternal? Has it always existed? Did it come from somewhere? If it came from somewhere, where did it come from? What started the process of it coming into existence? Is it going somewhere? If it's going out of existence, well, what is that? What's that going to be like? So from our experience is in some way also a revelation of God, even of the physical world. Okay, it's not like this division of theology and what you might say science. Okay, there's a kind of an intermingling here, that the world tells us also reveals or uncovers something to us about God. So you can know something. Just because you can't know everything, you can't have all knowledge about something, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, or that it can't be experienced, I guess is my point. And our response, because we are physical beings, our response to that reality, or you could say to God, occurs in the created world of experience. So we have brains to think. So we have to have dedicated reflection on God's world. We make choices. We have to make choices about how to live in it based on that reflection. Now, experience, again, is not without error. It has limitations, as I think I demonstrated with the sun, but it can also have religious limitations. You know? People can think things are the will of God for a long, long time and then realize that maybe this isn't the will of God. Like owning slaves or owning people. Stuff like that, which there are different levels of slavehood, I guess you could say. There's the level of like a servant, a person who's like a servant to somebody, kind of like a butler or something. And that's what you do. But then there are people who are enslaved. They're captured, they're forced into servitude. And this is found in all cultures, usually during warfare. You were part, when you defeated another tribe or another group, the other people or the people you defeated were part of the booty. They were part of the stuff that you got. You not only could ransack their village and take all the stuff, the food, the clothing, gold or precious metals or whatever stuff they had, their gods. But you also took them, made them your slaves, so they now worked for you. Okay. So you find that even in the Bible, there are rules about slavery. It was just a fact of life. No one questioned it. It was part of their experience. There were people. Now, whether someone was born a slave, that's a different thing. But yeah. It was part of warfare, and it was, and also if you were indebted was another thing that came up. If people couldn't pay their debts to another person, they could sell themselves as a slave because they had no possibility of repaying, so they would at least work for the person. So that would be another thing. So to pay off your debts. And once your debt was paid off, then you weren't a slave anymore. Hopefully. Hopefully. That's how we're supposed to work, but who knows? So this could be something part of human experience that people also just assumed was the will of God because it was there. People were doing it. People had always been doing it. So they didn't see any moral problems with that. So experience has its limitations. And sometimes that can be reflected in religious experience as well. People had this experience. The Jews had this experience. So they wrote laws from their God about, okay, this is how you have to treat a slave. If someone is a slave, they have rights. This is what you can do to the person. This is what you can't do to the person. Interesting little scripture about, if a person was a runaway slave, you were not supposed to send them back. You didn't have to send them back. They would take refuge amongst you. And maybe you'd make them a slave. You wouldn't send them back. No. Presumably they'd be free men. So interesting laws. And people might say, well, why is that even in there? Isn't that clearly wrong? We know better, or we've reflected on this. We've experienced it. And our experience has shown that this is not proper to the dignity of a human person. Yeah, that's right. But 5,000 years ago, didn't seem right to people then. It seemed like just completely normal. The society's norms were completely normal. And so experience develops. Experience grows. And so there are even limitations on, say, religious experience. It has to be interpreted, okay, I got that. Move on, Dr. All right, this is a reading from the First Vatican Council. This is not in, I give this on the PowerPoint, so it's not in the readings in the modules. But I want to talk about the First Vatican Council, which dealt with some of these issues about authority and the sources of authority. Let's see what that, okay, folks. The council was held from 1869 to 1870 in Rome. Technically Vatican City, the state of Vatican City, which was its own nation, which is still its own nation. The Pope is not just the Bishop of Rome, a religious figure, but he's also a political figure. He's the head of state and the head of government of the city of the Vatican, as it's called, the Vatican City, which is the smallest country on the planet. in area. And I guess in citizenry as well, because only the people that work there are considered citizens. And it's on Vatican Hill. So the hills in Rome have different names. There's the Lateran Hill, the Vatican Hill. I've heard the Esquiline Hill, I think, is another one. But there are a bunch of hills that the city of Rome was built on. And so the Vaticanum was a hill on which they had built this church, St. Peter's Basilica, this big church in honor of St. Peter the Apostle, one of the followers of Jesus, who is believed to have been buried on that hill, or at least his remains were moved there at some point. And so it's called the Vatican, the city of the Vatican Hill. And a council was held there near the end of the 1860s, as you can see. Hence, it's called the Vatican Council. It's held at the Vatican, all right, the Vatican Hill. And it's the first time that it happened. So therefore, it's the first Vatican Council, Vatican I. So what is it? It was an ecumenical council. Ecumenical comes from Greek, which simply means universal. Universal, including the whole universe, basically, ecumenical. In the context of the Catholic Church, it means that all the bishops of the world, all the bishops of the church, the leadership of the church, as far as are able, congregate in one place to discuss, to talk about issues of faith, issues of discipline, how to govern the church, stuff like that. It's like any council. I mean, there's nothing religious about a council. I mean, a council is a coming together, okay? People come together, they discuss their principles, they discuss, okay, what do we need to do, stuff like that, and it's the same thing. It's just in a religious context. And hopefully all the bishops can show up, but not always. Maybe someone gets sick and, can't go or something, or is not allowed to go, like they live in a country that is an enemy of the church and won't allow the bishops to leave. But most of the bishops of the Catholic world, I think, attended this one. It was called by this gentleman, Pope Blessed Pius IX. Pope Blessed Pius IX, who reigned, that's what the R means, he reigned, regnat. He was pope from 1846 to 78, which was a pretty long period. Most popes don't, in most of the history, didn't last that long. But the modern popes, I guess with modern technology and medicine and stuff like that, they're lasting longer. So 1846 to 78 is when he was pope. He might be on his way to sainthood. He is considered a blessed. So he's on that like second level. Well, he's in the middle, because we'll learn about this next month when I talk about saints some more. But for the process of becoming a saint, you start out as a servant of God, then you're recognized as a venerable, an honorable, you can be venerated, then you're a blessed, then you're finally a saint. Okay, so there's stages in the investigate, because they have to investigate your life, make sure you didn't have some skeletons in your closet, or not too many skeletons, Mr. Urban. Skeletons that can be explained away in the cases of some saints. The skeleton in the case of Pius IX is that he was an anti-Semite. So a lot of Jews don't like it but and maybe he was, he had that prejudice. But apparently, despite that prejudice, he was also a good and holy man, so he's blessed. He'll probably stay at blessed just because of the anti-Semitism aspect. He probably won't be declared a full saint, I would imagine. Nevertheless, I'm not defending it, but we do all have as I said, our skeletons. Anyways, he was pope, and what else do I want to say? The council never ended, actually. The council had to be, it was convoked, but it ended kind of peremptorily, in a manner of speaking, because the war broke out just before it, I think, between France and Prussia, which is basically Germany. It included Germany, but, the Prussian Empire, which is, as I said, basically Germany, just for simplicity's sake. Okay, I'll say Germany. Broke out with France, and so they were warring, and they were, the bishops were getting a little bit scared. They were worried like the armies were going to come down into Italy, and what would happen to them, So they all got a little bit nervous and said, well, let's just, close up the council for now and just leave, which is what they did, without formally actually closing the council. There was a Second Vatican Council in the 1960s that we will talk about later, and like the first thing that the bishops had to do at Vatican II, it was called, this was the second one at the Vatican, was close the first one from 1870, because it had never been formally closed by the bishops. They just all packed up and went home because they were scared about the war. There are also some other issues, but mainly apparently it was the war, so they postponed it. Okay, in that council, they issued two documents, but the one document we're concerned about is the Dogmatic Constitution on the Catholic Faith, which is known as Dei Filius. That comes from the first two Latin words of the document. Okay, so that's a shorthand way of referring to it. So I don't have to keep saying Dogmatic Constitution on the Faith. So Dei Filius from the first two Latin words. All right, Son of God is what it means. Dei Filius, Hijo de Dios in Spanish. Fili de Dieu and Figliuolo di Dio in Italian. So you can see the Latin languages are close to the Latin. Okay, Son of God. So it's dealing with dogma, which dogma means official teaching. So it's high-level teaching. So the bishops are not just giving an opinion here, they're consciously teaching the faith in this document. So it has a high level of authority because it's dogma, it's official teaching, and to show that is in the form of a constitution, the document. So you have to know these kind of names because then they show you the level of authority that something has. Some things, even from a council, can be lower levels. But dogmatic constitutions are always at the highest level because they're teaching about what constitutes the church, like our Constitution. The U.S. Constitution constitutes our government and outlines what it is, how it works, what the relationship of the parts are. This Constitution is outlining what the Catholic faith is, what the church believes about something. And that has to be believed if you're going to call yourself a Catholic. So it's a high level of authority. The main focus of this, even though it says it's on the Catholic faith, the main focus of this document was on faith and reason, because that was a big question in the 1800s. Modern science had emerged probably in the 1600s. So it'd been around for a while, but especially in the 1800s, with all the advances in modern science, the successes, the triumphs, okay, all the discoveries, people were starting to kind of sour on religion. They're like, well, what does religion do with us? Religion has no answers. Religion doesn't tell me about germ theory. It doesn't tell me how the world works, whether the sun is moving in the sky or not, whether the earth is moving or not, And sometimes religion would give me answers about scientific questions that were wrong, clearly wrong. So what good was it? What's good faith? Just have reason. Just be rational. And the church felt they needed to respond to this. So they did. Would anyone like to read this quote from chapter 2 of Dei Filius? Miss Hinkle? Free J. No, Hinkle? Good. All right, it's coming, Miss Hinkle. I'm not calling on you. If you want to read it, that's fine. I want to. Mr. Scott. I got you, Mr. Martin. Go ahead, Mr. Scott. Thank you.
Same knowledge. Can we know this things, the natural power. Ever since the creation of the world, its invisible nature has been clearly perceived.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Okay, fine, I can do that. Notice what it's affirming. It's affirming the value and the power of reason. Okay, you might think they come out of the gate saying, "Oh, just have faith." We want to stress the importance of faith. You need to just believe in God and don't worry about all that rationalism stuff. But no, because that's what some people were arguing in response to the appeal of, say, modern science and the enlightenment of stuff and this emphasis on reason. There were some religious people who said, well, forget about reason. Just have faith. God is ultimate truth. God knows how the world works, so you just believe in God and have faith in God and trust God absolutely. And whatever the human sciences say, ignore them, basically. They have no use to you. They can become an idol. And this was not the church's view. So in their opening statement, before they even get to faith, they have to affirm that no, reason has been given to us by God. It is part of our human nature, the way God made us. God who's the source. Okay? And so you can not just know about the world, but know with certainty through the use of your mind. Okay? So they qualified. It's not just enough to say that, okay, yeah, you can know stuff by reason. It's with certainty. They want to affirm the dignity of human reason. And also the consideration of the created world, that the created world is a valid source of knowledge about not just us, but God. Right? Whoops. And we can know things from it. And yes, God is not the same as nature from the Christian perspective. God is spiritual. He's invisible, so you can't see him. He's invisible. There are a lot of things in the physical world you can't see either that we're pretty sure are there, like dark energy and dark matter. But he's invisible. But he can be perceived in what we do watch, or what we do look at. Okay? Wait a second. Could you do me a favor, please? It's my guardian angel, Felix. I gave him the name Felix, after St. Felix of Valois, Mr. Cruz. Okay? Before you go, would you please give me that paper back that I handed out to you? Just put it up here when you go. Sorry about that. Hopefully it's not going to be one of those weeks, but it is one of those days. But I apologize. Yeah, so just hand it back in to me, please. Because I need to hand it out in another class, not this one. Yeah. That's all right. Well, I mean, it's not all right, but... So, human reason... Oh, okay. I might stop with this because we're at... I'll finish up with chapter 2. I'll read this because we're getting close to the time and I don't want to... But I'll read this. It was, however, pleasing to God. Why would God give us reason and not just require faith? All right? Because it pleased God to reveal himself and his will by another supernatural way. He's given us reason so we can know God and what he wants of us, yes, through our reason. They affirm that. Okay? You don't necessarily need a God to tell you not to steal, not to kill the innocent, okay? Not to do harm to other people. You don't necessarily need some supernatural entity telling you that. You can rationally know that, I think, okay? And make choices, rational choices, to act that way towards other human beings without a religion. So what's the need for faith? Because God wants to reveal more to us than just what we can know through reason. The relationship, the relational aspect. All right? I mean, I would think of it looking at the difference between looking at someone's picture and actually meeting the person. Which is better? You can have both. You can still carry the person's picture with you, on your cell phone or something so it reminds you of the person. But you'd also like to meet be around the person. If the person's your friend or a family member, you don't just want the picture. And reason is kind of like the picture. We're getting the picture of a God. But we don't necessarily have the full relationship yet. And that's where revelation comes. God unveils himself to us. He enters into a relationship. So he tells us these things, or reveals, not because he wants to tell us things or reveal to us things that although they're not of themselves beyond the scope of human reason, there's some things that we cannot necessarily, we could still know through reason, through the use of reason, even in the present state of the human race. Okay, but there are things that he wants us to know without difficulty. Because, as I said, thinking is hard. And thinking can also be erroneous. We can make mistakes in our thinking. So we want to be certain that what we're thinking is confirmed. Like, yes, you don't necessarily need a God to tell you don't kill the innocent. But when God gives the 10 Commandments to Moses, to the Jews, he feels like he needs to confirm that. Yes, you're right. Don't kill. That's not part of my plan. At least not always. When you get to the book of Joshua, all bets are off, Mr. Martin. God orders a lot of killing. Yeah. But don't kill! Ms. Cullen. Anyways, with certitude and no intermingling of error. It's basically what I just said. Okay, so that they're giving a reason of why would God give us a revelation or ask us to trust him in faith when we can just simply know things, just figure it out ourselves. Okay? Because that's not what a relationship is like. A relationship is a discussion, it's a conversation, it's a being together. Okay? And it's not just God telling you, do this, do this, do this, do this. And if you don't do this, then I'll do that, do that, do that to you. And that's not a relationship. Okay? At least not a healthy one. You might need that relationship early on, because that's kind of like how you do with children, right? You don't try to rationalize with them for the most part. You just say, do this, and if you don't do this, you're going to get a timeout or something like that. Okay, I'll end here and we'll come back to this on Thursday. God bless you all. Have a good week. Thank you, miss. I appreciate it. Yes, please give me the paper back. I apologize if you had to take it out. Thank you, miss. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good day, miss. You're welcome, miss. Thank you. You too, miss. Have a good day. Thank you, miss. Thank you, sir. Thank you, miss. Thank you. Yeah. Didn't want you reading things you didn't have to read, actually. Sorry about that, Mr. Belloway. Thank you, miss. Pre-J? Okay, good. Thank you, miss. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, guys.
Have a good day.
Thank you, miss. Thank you, Miss Paris. Appreciate it.